Now we have gone through many presentations and we have seen the technology which is being used for precasting and what are the advances which are going up with research and then with the practice and all that. So now how we can take it forward so that India also can be a leading player in precast. So here we have very eminent personality, Dr. Radhakrishna G. Pillai, Assistant Professor, IIT Madras, Chennai, talks about way forward for promoting precast or prestressed concrete construction in India. I request Dr. Radhakrishna Pillai to come on to the dais.
Good evening. So, yesterday and today heard about a lot of technologies and also challenges which we have. So, here I will summarize some of those things which you have already heard and also highlight something which we have to really do to see many precast concrete structures in India. Okay. So, this is mainly a work which we have been doing very little amount of work on precast concrete and how to promote that and all that between me and Professor Raghavan, who is well known among the precast industry. And but we found there are a lot of things. Doing research is one, but we also have to take things forward in the policy and promotion side. That's the only way to really push this technology further. Okay. So, that's why we thought, okay, let's talk about, and probably towards the end of this 2-day seminar, this would be, or 2-day conference, this would be a nice topic to look at. So, today if we look at, in 2030, whatever the infrastructure which we require, we have built only 70% of that. Okay. And the task ahead is huge, and with the current cost in situ construction, it's really not going to, we are not going to meet that target. And what the pictures you are seeing, one on the left side, you can see very poor quality houses. We have to replace them with habitable houses. Even if you look at many of the construction projects, you can see the houses are built, but are they really livable for long time, not just for few years after construction. So, because why I am saying this is, I have seen some model houses which are used for mass housing projects, which are not really livable probably for long period of time. So, even functionality they are not taken care, mainly because there are a lot of adjustments which are done during the cast in situ construction. So, precast is something where you have to really plan ahead, otherwise it won't work also. Planning is also very important. And if you look in the infrastructure or the transportation infrastructure sector, there also we have lot of room for adopting precast concrete. Last week, Minister Gadkari, he has said by 2024 December, we will have excellent quality roads. But how do we reach there? What that statement means is, we have to increase the speed of construction by 38, let's say 40% increase. The way in which we are going today, we will not be able to meet that promise. You have to really increase the speed of construction. And to do that, probably precast is the only option when we talk about highway construction. Okay. And if I really do mathematics, this could even say, instead of 38, I can say up to 50, but double the speed. If you remember that thing, it's better instead of this number, what is the speed requirement? Double the speed of construction. Okay. How do we do? So, we have to change a lot of things, and of course, we have to ensure quality. Now, I remember many highway projects probably about few years ago. When you look at the quality, the riding quality of the highways, If you go at a higher speed, you will realize the riding quality. It will be roller coaster sometimes, right? You will see a lot of bumps. So, all such problems can be probably avoided when we go for mechanization or industrialization of construction. Okay, that is a key word which we have to think about. So, rapid urbanization is happening, population is increasing, we need to have houses, sanitation, that is very, very important. Proper sanitation. See, if you look at just travel, for men may not be that big a problem, but for females they think 10 times, when they travel, where do you find a proper restroom, very clean restroom. So, we need to actually think in also all those directions also, but cost in situ is probably something which we have to avoid, and then get increased number of these type of products are also required. Precast is one option for that. The one picture on the right side is a metro station, because you need to transport lot of people, and if you talk about metro project, what is the typical duration you are talking. Even we say in metro most of it is precast, but still there are lot of things which you can actually adopt to further increase the speed of construction. Then if we look in the housing sector, this is number of houses. If you look at the drawing on the right side, the one which is green is what we have completed, which is just about 48% or let us say 50% of what has been sanctioned. This project was launched in 2015, supposed to be done in 2021, and we are in 2022 today. It is still only 50%, target is all what we could achieve. So, again, I mean, like I said in the beginning, I am not giving you anything new, but I thought put it together in one shot. So, we need to really, we have a lot of room for improvement, and precast is one thing which is probably only viable option to really increase the speed of construction. There are other technologies, I am not saying there are no other technologies, but the impact which could have, impact this technology can have on the speed of our construction is really, really high. Okay, we have also committed that we will reduce the carbon footprint significantly by 2030. Now, if you go for precast construction, you can reduce the waste generation. If you go to a construction site, in the previous presentation also, I have seen some photos where they were very neat and clean site. There is no waste created. See, we always talk about waste management. Can we also think about minimizing the waste generation? If you do not generate the waste, then you can reduce the management of that waste. I mean, there is no need to manage. So, also think in terms of how to reduce the waste. Now, if you talk about precast concrete, we can reduce the weight because of, like, you just everything is done in a factory or a better controlled environment, and where you can minimize the use of even we can increase the use of fly ash, or waste materials also can be increased, because even when you talk about fly ash and slag, cast in situ construction, people still have hesitation in going for that OPC concrete. But if you go for precast, you can, there is a sense that it is more modern or more industrialized, and that plays a role when you talk to higher officials and decision makers. I think that also plays a role. So, definitely we can reduce the carbon footprint by adopting precast technology. Now, there are some 17 goals set up by United Nations for sustainable development. Now, out of these, if we say precast, we can very clearly say that this will fit into 5 of those goals. If you look in good health and well-being, how it fits. So, I was just talking, like, we were having some construction going on in campus, and the concrete pumping was happening, and it was done in the night. All the workers, engineers, everybody is at night, from 10 in the night till 4 in the morning, they are working. Okay. Now, if we were actually going for precast concrete, probably I was telling that engineer, like you could have been actually at home at this time and not at the construction site. Now, engineers we can say once in a while only, because at the time of construction only they will be there, but there are workers who would be doing this on a regular basis. So, they are always out of their home for during the night time. So, there are implications of there are need for us to make sure that people are actually working during the day. And also another aspect is, if you talk about precast, I have some pictures later, next slide actually, where workers are always under shade. So, generally the health is going to be better, and they will like it to work like that, instead of you go to a I will come to that point next. Then industry, innovation and infrastructure, then sustainable cities, lot of smart cities, sustainable city, all these projects are coming. Maybe this is again, if we really want to finish those projects as early as possible, there is no other way, we have to actually adopt this kind of fast construction technologies. Now, clean water and sanitation, you go to any rural places or even in urban localities, these drainages are most of the time very bad quality, quality control, because first of all they are not made with because they, even if something, let's say a drainage element, even if it is damaging or something, nobody is going to get killed, right. So, they do not really worry much about that, but then you will end up in spending a lot of money, or you will also not get enough quality product out of, quality service out of that drainage facilities. So, definitely if you go for precast, you can control the quality of those, you can in all aspects, both in terms of structural and material aspects, you can control, and also functionality aspect. So, there is, so why I am saying that how it fits into these sustainability goal, because we are talking about how to promote this. So, when we talk to people, we have to say that this actually fits in these 5 baskets of sustainability or sustainable development goals. And responsible consumption and production. If you go with precast, like I said, we can reduce the amount of waste generation, definitely that means natural resources we will reduce, may not be in large percentage, but definitely there will be some reduction. And if you go for precast concreting, we can also think about recycled materials in precast, okay. Because if you say recycled material and cast in situ, it will be very difficult to convince government officials to actually accept it. I mean, it will be very difficult to convince. But if you say, okay, I am going to do this in a much controlled environment, which is my factory, where I will make precast product with recycled material, which will be well tested and then used. Okay, so how it fits into all these goals? There are a lot of room. So, now I said earlier, like workers' health and well-being. On the pictures on the left side shows what is happening today in a typical cast in situ construction site. Under sun they have to work, it's very tiring, and on the right side you can see everything is done. You can have very better environment for workers also. Now, about again carbon emission, if you look at 28% of it is coming from building operations, and about 10% is from building materials and construction. Operations is high, agreed, but again we have had bans on construction, intermittent bans, talking you can't do this. So, that all affects the sector as a whole. So, how do we this precast construction could be one way by which you can continue to have it, but it is done in a controlled environment, so that you do not really generate that pollution related issues. Now, construction is one of the major sector which is consuming natural resources. So, again like I said, we have to really reduce the amount of material consumption and also reduce the waste generation. Waste generation reduction is very, very important. Both reduction of waste generation and utilization of waste materials in construction, which if you go for this more mechanized operations, probably it is easier to adopt and having better quality controls. To summarize, so we have significant room for adopting precast concrete in our construction. A lot of structures are yet to be built, and increase of the speed of construction need to be increased, and only about most of the policies or schemes which we have, we are not really meeting the target values. Okay. So, that is something very, very important to think about. We are meeting only 50, the last bullet on the left side, only 50% is what we are meeting. So, how do we increase speed of construction without compromising the quality? Okay. Now, commitments, again in general it is about talking about how do we reduce the carbon emissions and carbon footprint of our construction sector. Now, solution is, I said increase the speed, how much we can increase? So, precast concrete construction, if you adopt, you can increase the speed by 30 to 50%. Okay. So, that is a significant increase. Cost savings about 10% to 20% you can save. There are more manufacturers here, you can probably have a better idea than me on this, but this is mainly based on discussions with several manufacturers we came up with these numbers. But again, point is this 10 to 20% reduction is possible when we talk about the capital. When you talk about the life cycle cost, probably it is much more. Problem is we do not have data to show that right now. Okay. So, we are still trying to collect good data. So, if anybody can share data, it will be very useful. It is very difficult to get the data. Then efficiency, like I said earlier, waste reduction, and 60 to 70% reduced labor requirement, because most of the time you are actually going to do everything on ground. Only erection happens, right, but most of the other work is happening on ground. Definitely quality can be increased. Imagine like, there was this project, I mean I do not want to mention the name, but there was this project where there were like 1700 columns were planned to be, it was part of that project, monument type structure, and all architectural features, everything, about 4-story high building, and we literally fought to get precast into that, but it did not happen. So, now if you really look at the advantages of precast, if you are talking 4th story and a monumental structure, which engineer will actually go and check whether all the architectural features, everything is done in a correct way? But if you are actually doing it on ground, you can check everything before you allow it to start for the erection. So, there is a lot of advantages in that aspect, and also when you work on ground, the labor requirement decreases significantly rather than working at a height, etc. Of course, when you are working on ground, safety is very much benefited, and you also get better quality finishes, it looks good, aesthetic appearance will be very, very good, and better facilities management, because most of the time you will plan much ahead of time. And again, this better supply chain management, it's, let us say you have, like this example which I said 1700 columns, you do not have to make that all 1700 on day one, right. So, it can be provided as there is a need for erection. So, again construction cost will come down, because you do not have to do this multiple handling of the products. You can manage this delivery of these elements to the site in a controlled manner, so that as it comes, it directly goes for erection. So, those kind of advantages are also there. Now, this is one question for you all, just to make us interactive. How much do you think is the percentage of precast concrete construction in India? How many of you think it is 50%? 50%? Okay, I am trying to classify. How many of you think it is 25%? So, somebody answers 1%. So, it is very, very less. So, there is a lot of room for us to improve. So, again when you bring in a new technology, there is a lot of definitely there will be a lot of resistance first. So this is like, when I put this picture earlier today actually, when I saw this picture on computers, it was reminding me my BTech class. That time the computers were looking like this, right? Now today if you go, but at that time when you talk about computer, there are a lot of resistance from various sectors saying it's going to take all our jobs. So similar is probably happening in, while we talk about precast also, what will happen to all the workers and all that. So, but we have to really push. Now, this is that number, only about 2% is what we are, is the contribution of precast concrete in our general concrete construction. Mostly it is limited to infrastructure projects and also not really standardized for various load conditions. Every project you will see different type of structures. Yes, if you ask an architect, they will say, yes, we need that flexibility. That is fine. But if you really look into other countries, you will see that this is not really the case. For the particular load cases, you have standard elements available which you can buy off the shelf. I'll come a little bit more detail on that topic later. Now, Prime Minister's Awas Yojana Lighthouse project, this is was initiated to support these different technologies, and again, even though in that thing also you have only 0.2% is what is precast contribution. So we are talking very, even though we people in this room might be thinking we are all having lot of projects, but the room for this technology is much more. Okay. So limited precast setups and only about the number of factories and captive facilities, it's also very, very limited, or captive plants, casting yards. Now there is a large gap between the need of the society and the demand from clients. Who are the clients? We are talking about, not only private sector, but public sector. Public sector, this is very, very limited. So we have to bring these two closer. We have to minimize this gap. Now, generally when we talk about any technology, of course, we have hesitation to take up new things. So here what you see is that green boxes, whenever we talk about any new technology, first thing is you have to disseminate that knowledge about that, and then you have to keep pushing or persuade people, please adopt this technology, it is good. So that is what we are doing today. Okay, these first two boxes is what we are doing today. The remaining, the blue boxes, decision and implementation, has to be taken up by the decision makers, etc. Now, if you look in construction materials and methods, or rather construction industry, where do we fall in that probability distribution curve is late majority. So we wait for somebody else to try out. I don't want to try, you show me. I remember, like, about few years ago we were talking about there was a large scale school project which came up in Tamil Nadu. So we had some contacts in the PWD sector. We approached them, said, why don't you adopt this thing? First they had cited Bhuj earthquake, there was schools and lot of damage and all that, but we have to think that was several years ago. Now technology has changed, we learned from that, we have changed how to deal with the designs of joints, etc. But still that negative perception is still there. So that is something which we have to work on. Anyway, so they said, show me the pilot project or show me an example. So we said, sir, unless you allow, how do we show examples? So who will bell the cat is the question. So somewhere we have to take that, we have to persuade, there is no other go. Now, most of the construction sector falls under this late majority, which is you try, you experience, let us see whether it is working or not, then we will adopt, right. So this has to change. Now if you look at across the globe the percentage of precast adoption, you will find Finland is the one which is highly adopting, mainly because they have cold climate and you don't have enough time, like a month available during the year to really work. So that country has really pushed up. So they have 70% and Russia, you can see about 25% is average, and we stand at 2%. Okay? We are very large country, lot of construction is going on in India, and if you look in the absolute quantity of construction, this 2 is almost nothing, right? So this 2% is for what is happening in India. So we have to really work on increasing this. Now, factors, there are a lot of codes available abroad, but our code is still need to be significantly improved, and standardization is another thing by which we can actually improve the speed or adoption of precast technology. Abroad, when you, especially the developed world, when you look at, there are standard, the design codes are available, literally off the shelf you can purchase things, or off the shelf means you place the order and you get. And I'll tell one example of that also later. Definitely certification and testing programs are essential, because without certification it is not good to actually use anything which you talk about, you have to have proper certification. Now, government policies are also recently coming up, a lot of them. The center of the table, it shows examples from US and Malaysia, where they have it literally gave tax benefits, etc., for accelerated construction. And when you say accelerated construction, precast will definitely come into the picture. Now, if you talk about like Indian, even in CPWD and all that, yes, they allow precast, but they don't put a contract document on the timeline. So how can we, because that is a major benefit of going for precast, that you can finish the construction. Again, when I say timeline, on-site construction is what we have to say. Now, this letter actually came, just 8th April, you can see the date, letter, yeah, you can see the date, letter from, Marg, where they say they have, floating this policy on precast, what is the National Highway Precast Concrete Policy. So we will see that a lot of these things, a lot of the national highway projects will actually probably, go for precast. But again, when we say this, we really need to actually work on this thing and focus on the precision aspects. It's very important to focus on the precision aspects when we talk about precast concreting. Don't look at it very lightly like cast in situ, it won't work. It will create lot of problems, and then people will say it is not good. So we have to really think about how to do the job in a precise manner when we talk about precast. That is where, see, first thing which people tell is tolerance is not good, or leakage. All this is because of that fine detailing which we kind of miss. So that's very important to look at. So also our manuals or the documents available we can adopt from abroad, but we also have to work on making our own documents. Very challenging task, but it is necessary. And lot of course work, like maybe I was even thinking, me and Nandish were talking in this program which we are talking, if we really want to make a push, maybe every month we should have a program like this in different parts of the country. So you will get that jump, immediately. Instead of doing once in a year, if we can have this program every month in various parts of the country, probably we will create that awareness in a much faster rate. Then people will pick up. But if you wait for one program a year and then, that will take long time. By that time we miss all the deadlines and targets will not be met, all that. Okay. So standards, and also this in abroad, for example, if you look at PCI, they really control the industry, right? They have good documents, standard or manuals, PCI handbook is available. So we need to work in that line also to make better documents for our country. And let me skip this. Now, if we talk about the highways, one picture on the left side, you can see, the construction of, that is in California, that signboard you can see, that's in California, major road construction. On the right side is what we do. Look at the time taken for that construction on the left side, and the time it would take for our projects. And on the right side, half of the road is closed. It's really creating a lot of problems for a long period of time, right? So even in Chennai, when there was this project, this is about 8 years ago, they were, as a pilot project, they were doing this concrete construction, white topping, and the main problem which was raised was, it takes 2 months to, like 28 days of curing, or whatever, the time was the main problem. And also when you do white topping, the shoulders are not really taken care, that there will be a 1 feet jump over there. So if you can do things about this precast, if you can think of, you can take care of those problems, and then in overnight you can have the project done if it is planned properly. But for concrete, if you are talking about cast in situ, you can't get it overnight. It's just very, very difficult. Okay. Now how do we overcome these barriers? I talked about many of these problems. So standardization is first thing I think we have to do, and we have to have, maybe PSI can come up with some kind of standard designs. And I know when you talk about standard design, there will be apprehension that my formwork is not going to meet that dimension, right? So probably it is better that we start thinking about it today rather than after 10 years when there will be much more precasters. So if we can think about it today, and that will be probably a way forward. Now this logo at the bottom, which I put Heidenfels, this is like during my master's study in Texas. I still remember after 20 years, this statement that person over there was telling me, I have orders for next 4 years. Next 4 years, and this is a precasting yard or company which is making girders for bridge projects. He was saying 4 years of full, he has orders. Is there anybody like that? I mean, we don't have that. So, and I am talking 20 years old story. Huh? So we have, I think, a lot of room for our construction. So even today when we talk, even in the middle of the cities, we still see cast in situ construction on bridges. In Chennai also I can tell, in Tambaram there is this bridge which is coming, it's fully cast in situ. So we say that infrastructure projects are all precast, but they are not really taken up by many of the government agencies. Maybe NHAI, but there are a lot of, but mainly because probably there is a issue with the demand and supply. Okay, you don't have enough people, and now as you will, some of you will agree that post COVID your workload has significantly increased, lot of work is coming, and not really having, so we really need lot of entrepreneurs to really start new startups, or maybe on this line. Now here is when I said standardization, where we are also missing. This was one of the MTech project which we did. You can see on the top, the photograph is showing there is a railway, flyover is there, or overbridge, and they wanted to expand. So 2 of the columns were getting cut. So basically they wanted to take the span out, put new span in, and the option was to go for precast, so that the chief minister used to travel through this road every day. So you don't want to close this for several months, and it was a very busy traffic locality. There were like 80 ambulances were crossing that bridge. So all those studies we have done on how decisions are made. But again, point is, the top left image, if you look here, that was the girders which were actually made. So what the contractor did is, he made the girder, it was sitting on ground, but he was not able to lift and put it on, because the weight was 107 tons. And so they were saying, it is going to take lot of time, cranes are not available, soil conditions are very difficult to lift and place it. So through this project we did, if you were actually following simple, it was not very big job. ASHTO, we just took out the ASHTO design codes and found out, for the same loading conditions, we did the analysis, we found your requirement is about half the weight. In the first case, 12 girders with 107 ton each. Second case is 13 girders with 62 tons. So you see how much over designing we are doing. We are wasting materials, not only materials waste, that is like permanent waste. Now also the construction, during construction you will have to have larger cranes, more fuel consumption, more time for construction. So there is lot of these things which, because when you talk about precast you will always look for low weight by default, right. So that's another thing, and the cost of girders also you can see from 130 lakhs it came down to 84 lakhs. This is a real project. This is not like a textbook problem, real scenario, and I am sure there are many cases like this if you look at across the country. So definitely there are more rooms. Codes and standards, most of them are inadequate. We always talk about joints and connections, that is the key problem. Leakage through that. Whenever we talk about precast, this is the first word which comes. Tolerance is not good, or seepage. How do you handle that? Now my point is, we cannot keep talking about this forever. We have to work out a solution on how to handle this. Okay, so we kind of studied this, and on the right side we were trying to start some test setup on how to control the seepage. But then COVID hit and then we got delayed by 2 years. Now we are going to start again on this project on how to work on the joints and connections. And lack of testing and certification agencies, that's another big problem, because if you think of promoting this and many more companies to come up, you really have to have lot of testing agencies who will actually certify. I request PSI to actually start something in that line, so that, or maybe I am not saying this association, but push it so that government agencies or BMTPC or something can actually start something in that line. Now this joints and connections, we said, this photograph is from a structure which was done precast concrete. You see the gap, 10 millimeter gap, it is not acceptable. This is why I think, so that's why I was saying earlier, precision is very important in this construction. If you don't care for that, everything will collapse. Why? When you talk about these Legos, right, there are different type of Legos available in the market. If you really go for the actual Legos, it will cost you multiple thousands. It's more a small packet, right, but you will get same thing for 500 rupees also. What is the difference? It's the precision which is, so that's, I think we have to, if you really want to promote this technology, this is very, very important to promote, because this Legos, the toys, I am talking about the kids toys, right, you connect it, you do it 5-10 times, then it's loose, but the real one will not, because they have really studied that. So that perfection we have to bring in. I think concrete materials technology is very, very important to bring in that perfection into this. Okay, it's not just that whatever you do, concrete will take care of it. It won't work. You have to really. So now on the right side, this was a case study on about 5 projects in different cities in South India. We did, and we actually went measured the dimensions of the really cast elements. Really cast elements, we take the measurement, and we found that you can see that vertical dash line, many of them are out of that. That means they are not meeting the caudal requirements, but it is being used. And again, this is from major projects, it is not like so we have to really give importance to this. Tolerance, when we say, we know there is a problem, but we are not really trying to address that problem. So we need to really enforce more testing and certification, then only this can be handled, I think. Also need more of online courses, probably would be an option to go. Now with COVID we learned that how to adapt to this, and then lot of online courses. Again, we need to make, it is not available. I am talking about way forward. So we have to really make online program, well structured online programs, and probably float a course This is again for association to think about. Can you have a course which talks about various issues with precast and or various challenges rather, instead of talking about issues, challenges, and then how to overcome, so that we do not get a negative perception later. Because the way it is going, there is lot of negative perceptions. So, we need to change or stop that from happening. Contracting practice, again this the time, and give some incentives for those who finish the job earlier. It is there, but not probably enough to allow the precasters to win the contracts, especially in government sector. Private sector, they can decide, you do not need to really worry, it is their money, they can decide. But how do we do this in government sector, where everything has to follow some set of contract documents? So, we need to see how we can actually change it, and probably time of construction is one thing, which on-site construction time, if we can give some clauses on those lines and on incentives for early finish. Then lack of incentives and policies, that is something again we have to influence the government agencies to make to implement such incentives. So, it has to start. Most of the time we are always miss the bus, because contract is already written, and that is where we miss, then you cannot really change anything. So, at least can we think of projects for which contracts are not yet written, and take a concerted effort in going and influencing them, those contracts which are yet to come. Now, here another thing, this is very, very important slide, I think. We have to decentralize this sector. We have to have various designers, various precasters, various specialists for various jobs, erectors, and then product manufacturers also. I remember, I think it was in Chennai Metro, they were doing some work, and the nut bolt system has to come from Singapore. Why we cannot do that in India? Now we have Make in India, lot of government support is there. So, we have to start thinking in that line, promoting entrepreneurship, and if that happens, I think all these group of stakeholders will come together and take it forward in a much faster way. And so, this is again a vicious circle which we are really fighting with. This is again one of the MTech projects, where all the topics which I talked about in the last 20-30 minutes, these are all interrelated. All these are interrelated. So, one will say I do not have it, other will say I will not give it. So, who will actually start the thing? So, there are a lot of vicious circles involved in this, like lack of standards, lack of qualified engineers, reluctance of developers and architects also, and lack of safe and quality connections and joints. So, these all these aspects, negative perception. So, we have to work together to get rid of all these negative things, and then see, and technically also there are limitations, we have to accept it and try to work around or go way forward. Now, if you talk about, I will just take few more minutes. So, these are the key stakeholders: governments and service agencies, then private or public and private sectors, or rather clients, then architects and designers, and then manufacturers and system developers, and then contractors, precast contractors specifically, and also academia and research agencies. So, these are, so we all have to work together. So, you can see the color, I am going to fill a little bit on the role of each of these stakeholders, and then I will close. So, for the government and service agencies, what is that they can do? For large projects, can they promote precast, or specifically like the recent mandate from, or the policy from Marg, saying that adopt precast for all the national highway projects. So, something like that, can we actually do that for in a much larger scale? That means policy changes, and if we can have a nodal agency who will kind of regulate the entire industry, because otherwise we are worried that people will start doing things left and right, and then it might adversely affect the whole industry after a few years. That we should not allow. So, that is why I am saying testing agencies and all that, and definitely training is very much important, skill training, not only for engineers but also for the people who actually work. Yesterday, Professor Rao was showing some photos where there were couplers in the joint or junction, but they actually tied the coupler with a tie wire. And I mean, so if the worker, because this is happening upstairs, so engineer is not going and seeing it, they somehow finish the job. Once the concrete is placed, nobody knows what is inside. In another case, it was welded, butt welding, not even full deep, but just, so these are the things which we have to adopt. Probably that person who did that job doesn't know the drawback of it or know the adverse effect. If they know it, I don't think they will do. So they think it's okay, you just have to cut it and keep it there and done. But so we have to also have programs for on-site workers. That's also very, very important. And for the public and private sector and architects, they have to actually start thinking about systems which, and promoting these construction technology, contractual formats they have to work on, and modular planning systems, life cycle based costing, not only the capital cost. So we have to bring in the durability, quality aspect into this, and also other new age construction management technologies like BIM and lean construction, etc. So all that have to be the role of the architects, etc. Then if you look in the contractors and manufacturers and system developers, this is where they have to have certification of plants and workforce. Certification, how many of these precasters or the workforce, forget the plan may have certification, but the people who work there, do you really give certification on that, or can we actually enforce that we will only recruit people who have certification, something like that, or when you recruit people, have 1 or 2 weeks of training and then allow them to start working, and contribute to the knowledge body programs like this, and adoption of latest technologies, support for research and development. That's also very important. I am from that kind of community. Maybe CSR can be given to us, to do more research in this area. And I think it's allowed today, so CSR funds. Then, so we need money to work on these things. Nothing comes for free, and it is not charity work. So really, money is very, very important, and if it is provided, we can actually develop course materials, standard courses. So after some 1 year or 2 year time, you can have a group of people with these certificates or with this expert knowledge, and then only recruit them. Create a demand for such kind of certification. So if you are a PSI member, you say that I am going to recruit only those with these certificates. Give 1 year time or 2 year time, but put it in a contract document of the membership form itself. So some recent positive developments from the government side is also there. I already talked about it, time is running out, so I will cut short on this. One important thing here is, even in BIS, this is where we need more young people to come and participate in that. Okay, and they have now something new which is called young membership. Like in the committees, you can have people with less than 35 years to actually participate in committees, because most of the committees, when we look at, the people who actually do the writing work are the young people. Okay, and the others are important in giving the advice or reviewing the documents, but the draft, the groundwork has to be done by, so we need more people to participate. So yeah, to summarize or to conclude, there are technical issues, negative perceptions are there, but we have to work and need to do research so that we can resolve those issues and accelerate the promotional policies, and feedback is very, very crucial so that we can improve on. And then global precast industry is expected to grow by about 1.6 times by 2030, and we have a lot more room. Like I said, 2% is what we are doing. We need to increase significantly. I am not saying 100%, but as much as we can, and many more companies have to start focusing on these lines. So let's collaborate to make this change, to modernize or industrialize the Indian concrete construction industry. I put this word industrialization after I was talking with Mr. Vijay from Home, what is the name? Home Mission. Yeah. So he was saying industrialization is the key word, because then only it will sell at the highest level. So we have to strategize also. It's very important. I think, yeah. So we at IIT Madras are working. We have a good group of faculty who are working on concrete material structures and also on construction management, because this topic is essentially a construction management topic, how to promote precast. So I think this is the action plan. We are trying to put together a consortium of companies who would actually help in promoting this. So a large project is being put up with plan is to have multiple institutions and associations like this to participate. What we will work on is develop policy documents, codal revisions, precast standardization of the precast elements, testing methods, certificates. So all these things, most of the time we expect somebody else to do it, and that's what leads to the delays in implementation. So we thought, okay, let us float a project which through that project we will actually make these documents, give it to the agencies to further implement. So we will do the homework on that, but we need help from the industry to support that project. So offline I will talk to people here on that, and thank you very much. This is a code for a survey. I don't know if the network is not working, right? So I must thank Nandish. He is the one who made this presentation. He is sitting here. He is one of our students there and now working as a project officer on this precast initiative. So thanks to Nandish. So thank you. That's it from my side. I know I took a little bit extra time. Sorry. But any questions? If otherwise we leave.
Thank you, sir. You have given a very elaborate presentation regarding how to go about the precast and then what are the strategies we have to adopt and all that in a very nice way. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I request now Mr. Jamin Patel to present a memento to our professor. Everybody should become early birds. Whatever that graph he has shown, we have to be the early birds. Okay?